welcome to this evening's Board of Education business meeting. We are doing this via Google Meet, as well as streaming via YouTube Live, and the link that's all is in the agenda. With that being said, I'd like to have a call to order. Mr. Zemke.
Mr. Grippo?
Here.
Ms. Hallen? Ms. Ham?
Here.
Ms. Harrigan? Mr. Martelli?
Here.
Mr. Perugini?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Pero. I believe we're actually going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think Jeff will show the flag on the screen. So whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Stand up now, you can see the pledge. Come stand over here. You wanna stand right here?
There we go. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that, Jeff. So good evening, everyone. Before we get into the actual meeting, just a reminder that while we are meeting via Google Meet, you can submit questions, as we've been doing all along, by emailing CPSCovid19 at cheshire.k12.ct.us. We checked just before the meeting started, and there were no emails yet. So I'm going to recommend is actually move the public comment section toward the end of the meeting, specifically after let's say old business, so that between now and then, if people send in emails or questions, we can get to them at the end of the meeting. So unless there's any objections, I'm going to go ahead and make that change.
No objections.
Awesome. Thank you, team. First item for business is, I was going to say, it feels a little weird, but we're missing our student representatives. I'm so used to having, was used to having them out in front of us all school year long. So hopefully we get a chance to get a report from them before we're done with the school year. If not in town hall, hopefully on the next school we'll meet. So I know it's a little difficult to do with all the online learning they're doing, but we do miss those folks. That being said, we're going to go into the report to standing committee, starting with the curriculum committee. That's you, Faith.
Okay. We met last evening, April 22nd. It was a great meeting. We did hear from or about a new textbook that is under review for the AP comparative government class. We then went on to a full-on review of the distance learning or remote learning program, its evolution, pluses, minuses, just how we're progressing with it. We have heard about where we stand with the second and first through, or K through 2s. They are still working with instructional packets. Grade 3 has moved into the Google Classroom platform. And so essentially we just went through the progress of each program. We also heard about the College Board testing, so SAT and and AP testing. We have about 480 kids who are taking the AP tests, and they will be done at home, open book. So again, we got a great report on just how the school is doing a fabulous job, the teachers, the administration, families, in terms of dealing with this learning issue.
Thank you, Faith. That meeting was actually last night, and I know we could not live stream it, but I did have folks, I know I got some emails, I think Faith got some messages about if that meeting was going to be made available today. Folks actually do want to watch it. So has that been uploaded yet, or is that in progress?
It's on YouTube and Channel 14 already.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I'll share a link to everybody. I think a lot of folks are looking forward to hearing the progress. And for the rest of the board, if you didn't watch last night, it's definitely worth watching, at least the first half or so. So a lot of information there. Thank you, Faith. Any questions from the board for Faith on the curriculum committee report? Seeing as there is none, next up is the finance. Adam, that would be you and Mr. Massiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we had not had a finance committee meeting since our last meeting on March 12th, and I believe we reported on that at our last business meeting. All of the information that is in the agenda tonight will be reported on by Mr. Massiana. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen, which hopefully you can see now. What I did is I brought up the finance report that was provided to the board members. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So what I did is I provided an update to the March 30th report, as Mr. Grippo indicated. We're still in the same month from the last board meeting. However, I did update the right side of the worksheet, and I'll take you through the highlights. What changed from our last meeting is that the governor has let us know that schools will definitely be closed through March 20th. So this estimate of savings due to COVID and due to being in remote learning has been updated. And I'm assuming that this will take us through May 31st. That, in other words, we would be back by June 1st. So this does not assume that we're out for the remainder of the school year.
Hey, Vincent, we just interject. You said March 20th earlier. I think you meant May 20th.
I apologize. May 20th. Right. The
Yeah.
governor extended from April 20th to May 20th. And so this right-hand side assumes that we're back as of June 1. So it's roughly 2.5 months worth of savings. So going through this first $150,000 in savings would be from not having substitutes who we advise that they can collect unemployment. So this $150,000 savings, I just want to point out that on the benefits line down below here, we have to assume that when the substitutes collect unemployment, because we're a direct pay, we will pay $75,000 towards their unemployment benefits. So it's a net $75,000 in savings. The other large item here is this $100,000 for student activities. This assumes that there are no spring sports, and the $100,000 savings is from not paying stipends to the coaches for spring sports. Jeff just confirmed, we haven't heard from CIAC officially, but we do expect to by tomorrow.
Well, just to interject real quick, then they did cancel all sports through the end of May with the possibility of playing in June. They've also canceled spring playoffs, so there won't be any state playoffs. It's looking more and more like we're going to be out for the remainder of the year, unfortunately.
Okay.
But IAC will not be playing, sanctioned contests after for the playoffs.
Okay, thank you. This next category, this $58,000 in savings, is the result of not having staff working additional hours or overtime, and that would be all our non-certified staff. Benefits, the net that we're showing here, you've already talked about the $75,000 increase for unemployment compensation. We also have some employees that have moved on to our medical benefits plans because their spouses have lost coverage. So I do expect that, we'll see an increase in medical benefit costs. Again, $25,000 is a rough estimate at this point. So the net there in benefits is actually an increase of about $92,000. Moving into instruction, the $85,000 that I'm showing here is a reduction that's paid to our special ed providers for outplaced student services. We're in remote learning, and so are our outplacement providers for our special ed students. But in making that remote, we do expect about a 15% reduction, and those are being negotiated. And then, moving on, I'm trying to do this quickly because not a lot has changed. This line item, 186,200 plus this $60,000 in savings from fuel, that's what we're estimating will be the reduction in transportation costs. I know there's an executive session where we'll talk about DATCO's baseline proposal at this point, but their proposal would reduce to payment of 80% on our daily special ed and regular ed runs, and we would pay nothing for sports charters, field trips, or any other charter that's not running right now. So again, the combined savings there through May 31st would be about $250,000. And then the last section, operations and maintenance, we're projecting about a $68,000 savings. The bulk of that comes from the suspension of our cleaning services with Performance Environmental. So the bottom line is we are expecting overall savings to be $666,000. However, I do want to caution everyone that we know that there will be additional costs that are not reflected in this estimate yet because we don't know the numbers with any specificity, but we will be providing additional special education services that are compensatory because we can't provide the full slate of services our students need right now in the remote learning mode. So there will be an offset against that 666,000, and I hesitate to speculate what it might be. We hope to have a little bit more clarity when we meet with finance on Monday.
Thanks, Vincent. I know Adam had a question.
Hi, Vin. I just noticed on your line item breakout there about an increase in unemployment expense for substitute teachers. And I guess just it's my own ignorance, I suppose that. So does each substitute teacher, are they hired on an annual contract? Because I thought they were per diem.
Most are per diem. The only substitutes that are given a contract are long-term substitutes that are covering for a specific teacher who's out on some type of leave, such as maternity. But under the scenario with the pandemic, they are eligible for unemployment. And so they've applied and some are already collecting, I know that.
So even though we don't have like a specific contract with many of our substitutes, we're still responsible for their unemployment because
Yes, they are employees of the district.
Okay. All right. So they're not they're not treated as like an independent contractor. They do have like an employment agreement with the school system for a particular year, just so I'm understanding.
Yeah, well, they are employees of the school district, but they are not operating under any kind of a contract or employment agreement. When they work, they get paid.
So it's just because of the agreement that was reached through the federal government that these substitute teachers can apply for unemployment, and therefore we're I guess for lack of a better term have to pay out for those benefits because of those agreements, or is that something we would normally do?
No, we would, if anyone collects unemployment, because we're a direct pay, they call it, for unemployment, any employee of ours who is collecting benefits from the state bills us for that. So it's not different for substitutes. It would be any employee who was laid off would be receiving unemployment compensation, and it's our responsibility to pay that to the state.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me check the queue.
Okay.
Actually, I had a question, Vincent, going back to the special education services. I know we talked about this not a meeting, but last week in some conversation. So we do anticipate some compensatory or remediation efforts for those special education students once the assessments could be done. And I hope Jeff or Marlene will be a little clearing that a little later what that means. But the money that we expect to spend on those students when this settles down, since we haven't quite spent that money on special education right now, we're not going to be eligible for excess cost grant sharing. Will we be eligible for that when we actually do start spending those funds? And will there be an opportunity for some kind of reimbursement down the road?
I certainly would. Well, let's put it this way. The grants themselves and excess cost is a grant. The parameter of those have not changed. So to the extent that the student cost, including transportation, which we're not paying any right now, right?
We're not incurring it, but when it starts.
When it starts, to the extent it exceeds 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure, that is still eligible. I guess you raise a good point, though. So if we're providing compensatory services in the summer,
Because
new fiscal year.
right, and I don't know if we expended
Yeah.
3/4 of that, 3 times the excess cost before the shutdown, the fiscal year ends June 30th. We start, does the clock reset? Be curious to know.
I don't know, but I'll add that to the list of things that we
I
need
did
to
put
find out.
to some contacts at Cave today, but I haven't heard back yet. But I just thought I'd put it out there. Do we have any other questions from board members on this part of the finance report? I don't see any. I know the next one, probably a lot of questions, which is our medical benefits report. And that's you again, Mr. Massiano.
Okay. I'm going to try and do the same thing. I'll present the screen. Okay. Can everyone see the all the red up there?
That's all right.
Okay, so this is our medical benefits report through March 31st. You could see here we started the fiscal year with 3.7 million in reserve. These are the claims by month, and this is the update. So for the month of March, claims were 765,401. What I will add here is we saw an increase in our stop loss reimbursement. So on a year-to-date basis, stop loss from large claims have been paid to us in the amount of 168,000. A lot of what's driving these last 3 months of claims are large claims for several employees or their dependents. This 765,000 is a relatively high number for the month of March because, again, our new HSA plan year starts every January. So the bottom line is that on a year-to-date basis, net claims have reduced the trust fund balance by this 1,227,008. So as of March 31st, our trust fund balance is 2,511,620. And then if we look at the math on, what our average claims were expected of 750,000, we have about 3.3 months in reserves. However, this year's claims are running about 857,000 per month. So that, if you do that math, it's about 2.93 months of reserve for claims in that 2.5 million. And then down the bottom here, I just wanted to point out that, last year on a year-to-date basis, our claims were about 761,000. And so this year we're at that 857, 753. There are no COVID-related claims in here to speak of. If they are, it would just be for the costs of, minor medical expenses or testing. And I'm not sure if we're going to have any large COVID-related claims. It's too early to know, but that's where we stand as of March 31st with our medical benefits claims and trust fund. So I'm going to come back. Question?
Thank you, Vince. Any questions from the board members? Seeing as there are none.
Can I do one more thing, Mr.
Yeah,
Perugini?
if you had anything else, or if you had anything else to present during finance.
I did want to share the update on the grab and go program that we're providing meals over at Dodd Middle School. We did a distribution today. And so, this shows, I assume everybody can see the chart that's on the screen now. We good? Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So these are the distribution dates. You could see that we did a distribution today. For each of the distributions, these are the number of meals served. This is how many children were served. And so the number of meals served, meal days served, times the number of children served, times 2, because we're serving breakfast and lunch each day, equals the total meals that were distributed. So today we distributed 6,896 meals. The 4 days are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on a cumulative basis, you could see that we've distributed 66,478 meals. Again, this is available to children who live in Cheshire, age 18 and under. They don't have to be Cheshire Public School students. This is the total expected reimbursement that we'll get for serving these meals. So for today, it's $18,102. And on a cumulative basis, it's $176,407. So these reimbursements are there to cover the actual cost of the food that is provided, in this case, to the children. And there's also, an allowance that's included in the set rate that should cover labor costs related to the distribution and the preparation and the actual cost of the food. So I thought it was important that the board members understand, the number of meals. We are on a 2-day per week distribution now going forward. So we'll be distributing Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays we'll give meals for 3 days, and Thursdays we plan to give meals for 4 days. So, we are serving 7 days of breakfast and lunch when we are distributing those meals. And the reason that we reduced the number of meal distribution to 2 per week is just to try and minimize the exposure, of our staff to residents and vice versa. And it's been working out very, very well. Obviously, there's a lot of effort and work that goes into, making this possible. Of course, I want to thank, not only the manager, the managers of the kitchen, but all the staff that's involved in doing this. I think the program's going very, very well. Any questions?
Yeah, I think Mr. Gripple has one.
Yes, thank you. Well, first an observation, it appears, at least more recently, that the number of meals being served has stabilized in the 800 range, I guess.
Mhm. Seems to be.
And so my question is, when school is running, the children that we would normally, I guess, to give assistance to, um, are the meals that you're finding this is more not just for the children who would normally participate in the programs that we have, but we're finding that there's been more additional meals served to people who wouldn't normally participate in an assistance program?
So I'll answer the question this way. If you look at our free and reduced lunch population, and that's prior to the pandemic, where there's a lot more people that are unemployed now. So we had roughly 600 students in Cheshire that were eligible for free and reduced. And you could see that there's about 850 children that are being served meals. But what I can tell you, because we don't track students and names of who's picking up the meals, so, I couldn't tell you of the 850, how many of those are free and reduced lunch students. Um, But we are certainly serving more student meals than there are free and reduced lunch. So if you just kind of extrapolate that, yeah, we're definitely serving additional students beyond our free and reduced lunch population. However, kind of to go back to the point I was making, now that there are, more people that are potentially unemployed and don't have the income level or are on Husky, um, that free and reduced lunch number might be up higher right now. Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Tim has a question.
Hey, yeah, I'm on, right?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. Hey, thank you then for that. Yeah, I was just thinking about it today. My wife told me it's 300,000 people estimated in Connecticut that have entered unemployment in the past month, 5 weeks. We're about Chester's with 30,000 out of 3 million people, somewhere 1% less than 1%, but that means we probably have about 3,000 people in Cheshire that went on unemployment. It's just to feel it at a local level. It's just it feels even crazier to me to see it that way. I'm just curious because you had mentioned, Vin, since you had mentioned the cumulative reimbursement. I apologize if I missed it. What's the total cost to date of it?
Well,
And I know you mentioned an allowance too, but I'm just looking for a ballpark. Just curious to know what we're talking about here.
well, when you say total cost, I just want to be clear. So the cost would be the cost of actually purchasing the food,
Yeah.
And the bags, and then the labor to prep the food and distribute the food. So I can't answer definitively what our cost is. Our food service manager is working through that. In a typical meal period, the reimbursement that we get, does come close to, I mean, it covers our cost because our food service program, is, I don't want to say it's profitable, but our revenues exceed costs. We're allowed to keep up to 3 months of that revenue to be used to purchase equipment and do, any other type of improvements to the program. But we're in a unique period because we are not getting the revenue from charging for meals for students who are not free and reduced lunch eligible. We're also not selling any a la carte items. So when we do the math, we're not going to be, I don't think the revenues that we're receiving will exceed the expenses. I don't expect us to be underwater by a lot.
I guess so. I guess my question, I've said it in the last couple of meetings. I mean, I want our employees to have their jobs now. I do, and I support what Jeff's been doing with that. But I just so take sort of the labor out of it. I'm just curious. You mentioned before, what was it, 176,000 for meals total? So what's the cost? You mentioned I think it was like a
The
buck,
food cost?
huh?
The food cost?
Yeah, just the food cost,
I'll get back to you on that, but it's
Okay,
clearly
okay.
it's less than the 76 or 186,000 there, because
Oh,
the
okay.
reimbursement we get does cover labor typically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess in my mind, I just see the IAs who are helping and stuff. I see that as a sort of a segregated. It is related, but sort of for me, it's a segregated issue.
Yeah, the food cost is not that 186,000. It's clearly less.
Okay.
I'll share with the board when we have the updated spreadsheet, but the manager of food service, Madeline Dyker, provides very detailed, cost of purchasing food, and supplies, labor. You'll see all the detail in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. I don't see any questions from the board members. Anna, was there anything else you want to update? Do you want to give a heads up about the upcoming finance committee meeting next week?
Sure, Tony. Yeah, we're going to be having a finance committee meeting, I believe at 7 p.m. on next Monday, where we're going to be discussing various fiscal issues that may be of very great interest to the town of Cheshire.
Thank you, sir. We'll have more detail on that later. There's no other finance committee reports. I'm going to move on to personnel. And this is a little interesting because the personnel committee has not met since the last board meeting. But I will turn over to Tim and Jeff. This is typically an annual event, although this year it's kind of an odd situation. So Jeff and Tim, I think I'll start with Jeff. If you want to give an overview of what the non-renewals entail and why we do this every year.
Yes, thanks, Tony. We're looking at two motions this evening. And as Mr. Perugini said, there are, this is a pretty annual event, but the context of the world we're living in now kind of sensitizes this even more so. It's not easy to go through. Most educators across Connecticut have been here at one time or another, but the first motion I'm asking you to make this evening is around non-renewal of interim contracts. So when we have a teacher who may be out for the year, child rearing leave or something, we'll put that, hire a teacher on an interim contract. So we're asking that those contracts be non-renewed. That's pretty much a matter of course. That happens annually, pretty much no matter what circumstance we're under. Then the next motion I'm asking you to consider is in regard to non-renewing first and second year teachers. So each year what we do is evaluate where we are financially. The board has settled on a budget and has moved that forward to the town. When the town does not finalize their budget by May 1st, when we have to notify teachers that they're going to, whether they're going to return on contract or not. So what we do, along with most districts across Connecticut, is non-renew groups of teachers. There are 38 teachers that are in year 1 or 2 in the Cheshire public school systems. So they would be non-renewed. And if our budget is reduced by any significant number, unfortunately, some of those teachers, certainly the vast majority of them would not be, but some of them may not be coming back. And if we don't do that, and we wait until after May 1st, and then we have to lay those people off, first of all, they wouldn't be able, it's harder to go look for a job as we get toward the end of May, if that's really what they wanted to do. But then we would also have to pay their unemployment, which, as Mr. Massiano already touched upon a little bit, we'd be paying them. And unfortunately, they wouldn't be working for us. So the goal here, as it has been in every year that we've done this in the past, is to hire all these people back as soon as the budget is resolved. But we don't want to put ourselves behind the 8 ball, which is why, like I said, many other districts do this as well. I know I saw a question pop up. Mr. Grippo, did you?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, my question, I guess, is on the second motion that we have and why it's specific to years 1 and 2. Why not include year 3 and because it's through the end of year 4. So why not include anyone who is not a tenured teacher, just as a precaution, obviously, that we hope to God that none of that would ever have to happen. But why not just go all the way and then we just bring everyone back, when we can.
I think that's a really good question, and it's a logical question. The rationale there is the human element to this. When you're non-renewed, I don't care if you're the greatest teacher in the world or not, it produces a great deal of anxiety. So what we try and do is balance the fiscal element against the practical realities here and the human side of things. So with a pool of 38 teachers, if we get down to eliminating 40 positions in our budget next year, it would be cataclysmic. That's not going to happen. I know you wouldn't let it happen. The council wouldn't let it happen. Our community wouldn't let it happen. So I'm not going to create that level of anxiety for year 3 and 4 teachers. And to be fair, I don't think we're going to eliminate 38 positions. We're not even close to that. But the issue is that we need to look at a full pool of positions to determine which positions we may have to eliminate, if any. Now, we've done this in years past. And frankly, in the last 4 years that I've been superintendent, we haven't eliminated any positions through this process. So I think the likelihood that we hire everybody back is still pretty good, but this is just a kind of finding that sweet spot between what's practically, intelligent to do versus what's sensitive to our employees to do.
Thank you. And if I could just ask one other quick question. If I recall, the number of teachers, total teachers that we have employed is it 400 teachers?
Yeah, about 400.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Adam. Before I turn back to Tim, I had a question. So or clarification. I know because of the situation that's going on, not just in our town, state, but also nationally with the virus and economy, there was some reaction, I guess, when the letters went out about this non-renewal to teachers, and I think people are a little more sensitized, I guess, to the situation. So I just want to make sure we're all clear. This is not an action that the board is anticipating or is going to reducing positions. Number one, we haven't started budget deliberations yet with the town. That doesn't start until April 30th. And it'll probably be late May, maybe even June, depending on what the dates are before we get a budget number back. So, and as Mrs. or I guess Dr. Stone now, congratulations, by the way, I forgot to say that earlier. But as Jeff has indicated that, this gives the board some flexibility that should a worst case scenario come before the board for next year's budget or some unforeseen financial circumstance, at least gives us one avenue to look at for expenses, but it's not the only. So we're not there yet. I've been through, I think, 11 of these so far. I know why we do this, but I am a little sensitive to the fact of what's going out there today. So to put folks at ease, this is not a precursor for anything to come yet. It's just a standard operating procedure. So I hope folks understand that. Tim, I'm gonna turn it back to you anyway, and you have a question.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, did you just say a second ago that the letters have already been sent out?
We notified people that there is looking to potentially take action on this. So tonight you officially move to non-renew those contracts, notify people. Now, the trick to this is that, as a principal, my 15 years here, and certainly as superintendent, we always mentions in person. We go meet with the teachers and let them know and kind of reassure them. And then their colleagues really do the same because they're nervous when they hear this. There's a first-year teacher, reassure them. This is a little unique in that it's virtual. So what we did was have every principal personally connect with each individual who first and second year pool. Once this is official, them to connect with those folks and reassure them again, as Tony just said, an official back to work here anymore. Just kind of a uncomfortable circumstance until we get it resolved and hopefully the very near future.
Okay, so you sent out a letter, but it was an unofficial letter, kind of?
No, the letter indicated that they would, I was presenting this before the board as a recommendation.
Oh, okay. I understand. Okay, all right,
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tony, you want me to make a motion here?
Yeah, unless there's any other questions from board members.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I apologize.
No, there's two motions, but they cover the same parameters. I
What
believe.
should I think I should probably put the motions on the floor before we go any further.
I think so. If we have a discussion on it, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll make the two motions right now. Separately or together, do you have a preference? I think I'll make one motion. Then we can go through it, hopefully the second one quickly. All right. Motion that the Cheshire Board of Education, pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 10-151, authorizes the superintendent to non-renew the teacher contracts of all certified professional employees serving under an interim contract subject to CGS 10-151 at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Second.
Second.
So the motion actually has been seconded. Is there a discussion? Seeing as there is none,
Yeah.
let me read Tim, unless you wanted to say something.
I think it makes sense what we're doing. That's all.
No, I agree. It's and again, for people's minds at ease, this is not a definitive action. This is just unfortunately something that we have to do by statute by May 1st. And again, should in the future anything go south, it gives us flexibility, but we do this every year. But that being said, the motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education, pursuant to CGS 10-151, authorizes the superintendent to now renew the teacher contracts of all certified professional employees serving under an interim contract subject to CGS 10-151 at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. All those opposed? Seeing as there is none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, second motion, non-renewal of non-tenured teachers. That the Cheshire Board of Education, pursuant to CGS 10-151, authorize the superintendent to non-renew the teacher contracts of all non-tenured certified professional employees that are in the first and second year under contract for the Cheshire Public Schools, subject to CGS 10-151 at the end of the 2019-2020 school year, and further to authorize the superintendent to communicate written notice of such non-renewal to the affected teachers.
Second.
Awesome. Motion has been seconded. Any discussion? Did I just say seconded? Second.
Tony, if I could just make a comment.
Yes.
Just my question before to Dr. Solon was just sort of informational, because I believe that this motion, like I said, the exact wording, I think it comes up every year at this time. It was just sort of informational. I just wanted to find out because of 10-151 covers all 40 months. So that's why I just wanted a point of clarification as to why we're specifying. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Tim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I support this, and this is the same reason I could have given for the last motion, which is a comment that I had made just a little while ago. 20, 30 million people unemployed. If you break that down just to Cheshire, we probably are looking at 2,500 to 3,000 people here in Cheshire that have lost their jobs in the past 5 weeks. We only have 8,000 or 9,000 households. I'm not convinced that we will go into the next school year with the same teachers. We could lose a few bodies. I think this is the prudent thing to do, and I don't say that lightly. I don't want to even have this discussion, but when I'm looking at these numbers, seeing that many people or that many households, this is we all know how devastating it is, and I just want to be thoughtful about this and keep our options open at this time. And be a good fiduciary, uphold my fiduciary responsibility to everybody in town. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tim. And I I agree with your comments. Again, we're just trying to keep our options open. But we do put our students, employees, obviously first and foremost, and this doesn't change that. We'll see how things play out. Again, this is just an option for us to consider in the future if we even have to go there. So thank you, Tim. Any other comments from the board members or questions? Seeing as there are none, let's reread the motion. And the motion on the table is that the Cheshire Board of Education, pursuant to CGS 10-151, authorizes superintendent to non-renew the teacher contracts of all non-tenured certified professional employees that are in the first and second year under contract for Cheshire Public Schools, subject to CGS 10-151 at the end of the 2019-2020 school year, and further to authorize the superintendent to communicate a written notice on renewal to the effective teacher. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Seeing as there are none, no one's hands up, no comments, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Tim. That concludes our personnel. We do have a policy update. Adam, that will be you. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. Did you have your hand up? Yes, Tim. Tim, if you're talking, we can't hear you. All right, we'll get back to you. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay. So yeah, for policy, so let's see. I don't even know if, honestly, I don't remember if February 24th was our actual last policy meeting, because I thought we had one where we moved some other bylaws through, or, oh no, for, what was it? The policies for continuity, I think. Didn't we had, so this
Right.
is the meeting before that, would that be correct?
I believe so. I think what we did last time was we bypassed the February meeting to talk about the most recent one because of the policies
Right.
that are forward. So yeah, and we're kind of working a little backwards tonight. We're trying to.
Okay. So so what happened at this meeting was that we reviewed bylaws 9130 and 9321. And this is we had already posted this for first reading, and I think at our last meeting we actually had already moved these to a second reading, because I don't see a motion here to do so. The motion that I have here, and which would cover actions that occurred on February 24th, was that we made a motion to move the four policies listed here for a third reading and to be put into force by the superintendent. And all of these are policy changes due to changes in state statute. So I don't know if there are any questions before I move to read the motion.
I don't see anybody raising their hand up, Adam, so I think you're good.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go right to the motion here. Move that the Cheshire Board of Education give a third and final reading to the following policies and direct the superintendent to place said policies into immediate effect. 4118.5 responsible use policy. Policy number 5112, ages of attendance. Policy number 5118.2, homeless students. And policy number 6142, basic instructional program. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Seconded by Andrew. Discussion, if any.
Again, I'll just comment that we had reviewed these policies potentially at least certainly through the first half of the year. I don't even recall if perhaps they were holdovers from the end of last year. But they've been thoroughly reviewed, and I'm confident that they are ready for implementation.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any other questions on the motion from the board? Seeing as there is none, or are none, the motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education give a third and final reading to the following policies and direct the superintendent to place said policies into immediate effect. Number 4118.5, responsible use policy. Number 5112, ages of attendance. Number 5118.2, homeless students. And number 6142, basic instructional program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? There's one abstention since Tim White unfortunately got disconnected. Nonetheless, the motion passes.
I just got connected as you voted. I don't really know what you voted on. I'm assuming it's policy, but
Yeah, sorry, Tim. I said pop on and off. I was going to wait, but
no worries at all. Thank
right,
you, Tim.
thanks. Welcome back. Thank you, team. So motion passes. Adam, do you have any other updates out of policy? Or is that it?
There are no other updates at this time.
Thank you, Adam. School Modernization Committee, I know it hasn't met, but Andrew, I hear that we're gearing back up.
Sure. Yeah, the updates can be pretty brief, but the School Modernization Committee is going to pick up again on May 4th via Zoom meeting. Once the details are available, they'll be posted on the town's website. At that meeting, both Arcadis and Colliers, who are both the two responding firms for the owner's representative RFP, will be doing their presentations and hopefully sharing their screens, and it'll be an interactive meeting where we could ask them the questions so we could keep the process moving forward. So that again is Monday, May 4th at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Andrew. And it's going to be a Zoom meeting. Is there going to be open to the public, at least able to watch, or do we know yet? I don't know
Yes.
okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
It will be open to the public. There's not, the agenda hasn't been established or sent out yet.
No, I know there's a lot of interest. I think, for transparency, at least folks, if they want to listen in on the interviews, it might be good if they can. But thank you for the update.
It will be on the 722 page.
Excellent, Mike. Thank you.
We'll be live, so.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Do we have any other standing committees? I know it's been a busy time. So I think even if we could have snuck in a committee meeting in the last few weeks, probably been almost impossible thing going on. So that pretty much completes the standing committee reports. Next up is approval of minutes in our Board of Ed packet, specifically the agenda. There's a link to the Board of Education special meeting that we held on April 6th. Is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Adam makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Faith Ham seconds the motion. Any discussion or changes to those minutes? Seeing no one raise their hands, I have no changes. I think they're pretty accurate. And also what helps is the fact that the meetings are recorded, so it's easy to go back and just double check on things. Seeing as there is no questions on the motion, repeat it for all of us. The motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education approve the minutes of April 6th, 2020 Special Board of Education meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing as there are none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Correspondence. Unfortunately, Catherine Helen cannot make the meeting tonight. She was our Board of Ed secretary. I have not received any correspondence. The only correspondence that I received was questions related to curriculum, which we addressed last night. I know, Jeff, if you received any correspondence since the meeting started, but
I have not.
awesome. Thank you. Next up is what we all look forward to at every meeting, the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Tony. And I know there was not one bit of sarcasm in that introduction.
In all seriousness,
I'm-
tongue in cheek, because there's no sarcasm. Especially during this, in all seriousness, during this, unfortunately during this time frame, there's so much going on that I think we get a lot of detail from you during this report. In the past, prior to this, I would say, keep it, but given the situation, you need to say what you say. So we're all ears.
I got you. So I was asked by Mr. Massiana if he could give a quick tech update during the superintendent's report. He actually asked if I would formally introduce him. So, ladies and gentlemen, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Vincent Massiana.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'm going to share my screen, and it didn't need to be quite that formal, but thank you, Jeff. Can everybody see the screen? Yes, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to give a quick update on technology and technology support. As you know, Dr. Solon and Ms. Solano have reported, tonight and previously, as we've gone forward with remote learning, we've increased the types of things that we're doing with remote learning, which is obviously a very, very good thing. So just running down these bullets, we're supporting about 3,300 students that are in grades 3 through 12. And of the above total, we've got 2,151 district-owned devices that have been in the hands of our grade 7 through 12 students since the beginning of the year. They were already one-to-one. But since going to remote learning, we've provided another 310 district devices to our elementary school students. And that amounts to about 26% of the students in grades 3 through 6. So they're using a district device at this point. The things that we've expanded that are working well on the remote learning side are use of Google Classroom in elementary. And also we're starting to phase in use of video by our teachers. And so we believe that will likely increase the demand for some additional Chromebook devices to be provided, as well as technical support. Probably the most important thing I wanted to let you know is this next bullet, that the support level has been very high. We've responded to 274 tickets or support calls. Those are the ones that are logged. Plus, there's non-logged events that are being responded to through email that, not only our tech assistants, but our non-tech staff are assisting students and parents and staff with. The good news here is that the support requests are generally closed the same day that they're received, and most are handled right away. So, I think the message here is that we can continue to provide support even as the number of devices that we're supporting increases. We're still in good shape and able to do that remotely. And we're here to support, what the educators are doing, and we'll continue to do that. I would like to acknowledge and thank the families who have been using their own devices at home, because that enables us to continue to provide, devices, whether they're new devices or replacement devices when devices fail. So the students who really need them can continue to have them as we go forward. And then lastly, I do want to acknowledge and thank the managers and the staff, on the technology side, as well as all, the managers and staff that are in the background, providing the support that the educators need so that, we can continue to do a good job, during this remote learning period to support the students, and the parents, and certainly our.
Yeah, Vincent, thank you for that. Just a quick question. First of all, I know our team there is doing a phenomenal job with this. Again, we don't unfortunately get to hear from every single person in the school district using technology, but what we have been hearing is very positive in terms of support, especially when folks follow through the COVID site you set up and contacting you through the various email and support tickets. It seems to be going very well. The question I had is, what percentage of our internal staff, IT or tech related, is handling tickets versus Apex? Has there been any increased support needed from Apex since we did this remote learning, or has it pretty much been within within bounds of the contract or
No,
service.
I mean, in the past, just like now, we only go to Apex when we need, support at the network level or something more serious. So the staff that I'm referring to that's providing the support, is our technology manager, tech supervisor, and our 5, technology assistants, all district employees, and it's not that we haven't gone to Apex, to escalate certain things. Um, but, for the most part, I will say that our network, has been very stable. The response time has been very, very good across the network. As we increase, the use of video, that may put some strain on the resources, but we have a lot of bandwidth. As I'm sure all the board members know, we get our bandwidth from Connecticut Education Network. And even though parents and students are connected at home, a lot of that traffic still has to route, through the Cheshire, Public Schools network, because that's how we're able to manage the Google Chrome devices. So far, so good.
Thanks, Vince. I know Adam had a question for either Jeff or you.
Question is to Vin, I think. So in your screen share there, you said that was it K through 6 or was it K through 3 students? There were 26% were using Chromebooks. And if that's the case, I'm assuming that since Marlene had said that at least the majority of respondents, it was like 99% of people had their own devices. I'm guessing that means that the other 75% or so is using like an iPad or something. And so I guess my question is, I'm guessing if you were to use an iPad, you're downloading a Chrome browser and then logging in under the student ID. And if you are there the same protections afforded to the student using the Chrome browser on an iPad or a PC as opposed to the Chromebook? Are the protections and the lockdowns the same where a child, or assuming on, I don't know what the protections are based on age, but if they were to exit out of the Google Classroom tab or whatever, or any of the programs associated with Google Classroom, can they navigate outside of the Google Classroom while they're logged in under their student ID?
Well, I'll take a stab. Just to be clear, the 26%, what that refers to is the grade 3 through 6 students who are using a district device. So that means 74% are using a device of their own at home. And obviously if they're logged into Google, our Google site, or Google Classroom, they get whatever protection is available from Google. But if they're on their own PC, or iPad, or their own Chrome device, and they're not logged in up to the Cheshire K12.ct.us Google address, we can't offer any protections there. It's their own home device. But they are limited as long as they're logged into Google Chrome, regardless of the device, on the Cheshire K12CT US platform.
Right, that was my main concern. It's like, yeah, if they navigate away from their own, if they're not using the school login anymore, then yeah, obviously you're going to do whatever you would have done before. But as long as they are logged in, or at least using the tabs associated with their school ID, they do not have the opportunity to have anything except for educational content. As long as they were using their own, just the CPS ID. If you navigate to your own Google ID or whatever, then yeah, obviously all bets are off. Would that be? That's just my understanding, correct?
And what we've done, and that's a good question, Adam. And what we've done is, when the remote learning first burst on the scene across Connecticut nationally, a lot of folks immediately jumped to things like Zoom, and quickly retracted that because of the privacy issues and Zoom bombing is actually a term now, where people were jumping in. So we gave our survey for parents and for staff who said, yeah, we do want more video. There's clamoring for that, but we needed to find out how we could do that accessibly and effectively and safely. And so the other feedback we got was that elementary parents were getting bombarded with email. So what we've done is created Google Classroom accounts so that there's one source of information for parents. They're not getting blown up with emails. They log on with their child's email address. So all of our kids have that email address that they can only email other CPS accounts, receive email from other CPS accounts. So that's secure. And then they go on 3 through 6, started today actually, with video. And I know there was a lot of enthusiasm for that, where kids, actually K through 6, excuse me, started with video today. So I know there was a lot of enthusiasm for that. The teacher invites them through the Google Classroom. So other people, it's a secure way to lock it down into small groups of kids. The students can see, if they choose, they can turn off their camera the same way you can, but if they choose, they can see their peers in the class and the teacher and vice versa. That social connectedness of schooling has been a core part of education for centuries. And so I think, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about that transition, but we're very deliberate in how we rolled out video, and we seek to roll out more video for kids middle and high school is in the coming weeks. So everybody pretty much has to be logged on to now in order to access what we do, which provides greater protections. Go ahead, Tim.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, with regard to Jeff, a second ago, you had said, I think today or yesterday, you rolled out the K through 6 video.
Today.
What sort of, you know, as of right now, and I'm not sure how fluid this is, what do you expect in terms of the availability of the video over the next few weeks in K through 6? And K may be different than 6, but.
What do you mean by availability of the video? Because people who have cameras on their computer could access that now. That's a switch that we turn on in the background of Google Chrome on our platform. Every, you know, who has a district Chromebook had a camera. We just didn't make it accessible. We can shut it off from our home platform. Now we turned it on for those grades so that they can use it if they choose.
Okay, so who chooses to use it? Is it the individual classroom teacher? Is it Marlene?
No, it's
and how long?
It's the end user. Just like you have the capacity now to turn on and off your camera, the student on their end has the capacity to turn on and off their camera.
Okay, so how do I phrase this? Are teachers supposed to be making themselves available on a daily basis for K through 6 on video? Is it on a weekly basis? Are they supposed to be there 6 hours? You know,
I can
depends
take
on
that.
the grade level, and I'm afraid if I don't let Marlene speak.
I figured it's more Marlene than you.
Go ahead, Marlene.
I'm sorry. I want to be clear that that today we did enable the camera setting on the logins through Cheshire Public Schools for the students in kindergarten through 6th grade. There is not, this does not necessitate or require a teacher to be doing synchronous learning. It's an option for teachers to have small groups where they can connect with a student. They can do one-on-one intervention or support or give feedback, or in the instance of maybe some of the younger kids in kindergarten or 1st grade, a teacher might try and hold a morning meeting where the children can see each other. I was talking to a dad today where one of his, K1 or 2 sons was online and, felt like he was watching his friends on TV. Like, is that them? Can they see me? So it's fantastic. I want to make sure folks know that the teacher can control that, just like the owner of this meeting can, and they can mute or boot someone off of the meeting if, number one, there's something happening that shouldn't be, or a student is being loud. Over the last couple of days, the teachers at the elementary level have been going over the etiquette of Google Meet with all the kids to do that. So I just wanted to clarify, it's not a synchronous type of thing, but it's an optional instructional tool that the teachers can use.
And as much as Marlene is talking about the instructional element inherent in this, we're very sensitive to the fact that is she also kind of broached on, it's an emotional element too. Kids are really excited to see their peers. It's very hard for your standard 8-year-old to not see their friends for an extended period of time. It's hard for a 48-year-old. So there's certainly an emotional element to all of this that I don't want to overlook, because this is hard for our kids on that level too. So this is an opportunity for us to, better connect our kids and our staff. And that's a big part of what we try and do every day. So we're happy to be making this step forward. We're confident that we're doing it in a more responsible way, in a more private way. So we feel really good about the steps we've taken, and clearly our kids do too after day one. We're looking forward to continue to extend it. Faith, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. It's for Marlene and Jeff. In picking up on something that Marlene said, so much instruction in the younger grades is breaking up into groups and working working one-on-one. And this may go to what Marlene was saying, but that is still happening. And if she's working with a small group of kids and she's got the whole class, how is she managing that in the classroom?
We are not recommending that teachers hold synchronous classes with 20-something students, because for exactly that reason, it's incredibly difficult to manage that. Short periods of time, a read aloud, a video, doing a video through Screencastify, or producing a video through Screencastify for students to watch is fine. That synchronous piece we're really looking to do in much smaller groups, and we're phasing it in, right? We're starting small and working our way, and teachers will build upon that. Does that answer your question, Faith?
Yeah, thank you. And I realized that's what you were answering with Tim. I just wanted to clarify. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had one observation back to Adam's question about personal devices at home, not a district device. So the way this works is I have Chrome, my personal laptop, or on PC. If I'm a student, I open a tab in Chrome, I log into Google Classroom. While I'm in Google Classroom on a tab, that's all I can see. All I can do is in the district, whatever I'm assigned, et cetera. So I can't, from that tab wander off into other things through Google Classroom. That's not allowed. I can, however, open another tab and go watch a Teletubby video or SpongeBob for 10 minutes and then jump back in. So at the end of the day, the point is, if you're in Google Classroom, you're logging into Google Meet, or Screencastify, your protected realm. Is outside of that, a home PC, if you're not in those tabs, you're bound to your parental controls on that desktop or laptop. And to that end, if a parent has some questions on that or is looking for best practices, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had something up on the COVID website for technical FAQs around that. If not, maybe put something up there, things they can do to secure their PC that they're probably unaware of today. But I think with folks, either Frontier or Cox, both, and even Dick, they all provide some kind of antivirus protection suite as part of that. I think most folks have that. But again, nothing to be worried about. But if parents have questions, how to secure their own devices. Really nothing at Google Classroom. It's things that do outside of that they want to look at, if at all. So I'm not sure where they would go to the district for that guidance, but maybe something to consider. We post something up for them.
Tony, if
I'm
I
sorry.
could, if I
Yeah.
could add on to that, what you were saying, Tony, because I really appreciate that. So when kids are using their Cheshire Public Schools credentials, there is some safe searching that's going on because of that, but it doesn't match what we have at the district level. The home network is certainly going to be different than the district network. But yes, if people have questions about that, I can absolutely put them in touch with our folks in our technology department who can explain the nitty-gritty details of that. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I think we would have heard from folks by now, especially after, I'm not going to bring up the old topic that we've beaten to death in the past, but Tim, you had a question?
Yeah, a comment, I think. I just want to go back to what Jeff had said about the social emotional part of it. And I think that is important. I mean, just when I take my kids out for a walk around the neighborhood and stuff, and I see other kids walking by, I usually stop them and just ask them about how it's going. And one of the things that many of the kids, not all the kids, but many of the kids miss the interaction. And I know you just rolled out K-6 today, but to whatever extent you could do that as quickly as possible in a safe manner, even through something, I'm thinking like you mentioned a morning meeting or morning announcements. I don't know sixth grade at all, but just like 5 minutes of a little bit of FaceTime, and that might lead to hey, some funny face, and then they have a little chat separately in Google Classroom now, like text messaging or however it works, just to add a little bit more normalcy to their life sooner rather than later. So, and I know it takes time. I don't mean to suggest it doesn't, but just advocating for that.
Yeah, we've got a good timeline to roll that out. This week is when we're rolling out the K-6. We had the most desire for that based on the surveys. And the next phase will be middle school and high school, but we want to make sure that we spend at least 5 days making sure that it's working well with the K-6 students. But I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. I turn it back to you, Jeff. We're still in your update.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm glad Tim mentioned earlier the unemployment rates that exist. And, that's something that you wouldn't think as a school system that we pay attention to, but we actually do because of things like you're talking about, whether it's food service, budgeting, computer access, all these variables have an impact on us too. So, if the Department of Labor has their statistics available online, as a matter of fact, we were just checking this the other day. March had Cheshire at 2.5% unemployment. It was actually the third lowest in the state. But we are, don't forget, on that 6-week lag. So we will continue to monitor that as it relates to food service prep, as it relates to technology, and it relates to social emotional issues and counseling in the home. So that is something we continue to monitor. Adam, you had a question?
Yes, thanks. Sort of on that note, as things get tougher, and hopefully it won't get much tough like that, do we have anything in place to supply hotspots? I know that wasn't like a real concern at first, because I think it was like 99% of households have internet and that sort of thing. But if something terrible were to occur, do we have anything in place with a local company or anything to implement that, or with the state of Connecticut?
Well, it's a good question, Adam. It was a sensitivity that we had entering into a remote learning environment, and we've ordered hotspots and we've distributed hotspots. So those, in case you don't know, provide Wi-Fi signal to the home. So it's basically just a device that provides internet access to the people in your home, or it could be a larger area depending on the actual device. But so yes, we do have some backup for that. The other thing I want to go back in just a second is touch upon another remote learning vocabulary word people may not be comfortable or aware of is synchronous learning. There's synchronous and asynchronous learning. So synchronous learning is I have my whole fourth period class meets together at 10 a.m. every day. All of us are expected to be there. We haven't committed to that situation because home lives are so variable. You know, you may be taking care of your little brother or sister that at that time. You know, your parents may be working. We still have a lot of working parents in our community, frontline parents with research and medical services. So, you know, that we haven't committed to a synchronous learning environment. So just wanted to clarify that language too. Faith, you had a question as well?
I did, thank you. And this may be way premature, so forgive me if it is, but as you talking to the Department of Labor about the unemployment, personally, I know a number of people who have just had to leave Connecticut for loss of job and everything else. Like we're only, what, 10 weeks into this? Have we seen withdrawals of kids yet of families who've had to leave?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Our enrollment has been static, actually, more static than it is otherwise, really. You know, over the course of a month, you'll see limited in our community, limited transiency. You'll see limited moves in and out of the community. But during this period, it's even less so because I think it's really hard for people to get anywhere or go anywhere. So we're pretty much on lockdown. Tim?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So you have what? You have 3,300 students who've been basically they're supposed to be online for the past month or so. Some of them, you're going to have a handful of students that are, you know, what is it, truancy, or taking those out. Have you had any more than say one or two? Have you had any noticeable problem of students who are simply just not logging in that would normally come to school?
Right. Yeah. What we've done is really emphasize engagement. And so all of our staff are being asked to be very sensitive to monitor who they're getting responses from and not. And then they filter that through the counselor or mental health folks at the building level, who in turn, along with the teacher, will make those connections. Now, Marlene was just telling a story last night at the curriculum committee meeting about an art teacher who hadn't heard from a student, drove to the house and had a conversation in the driveway. So what we're really trying to do is make sure that all of our kids are engaged, because this can be, as I said, an emotionally difficult time. So it's a different, perhaps, population that we're working with now. And it is critically important that we continue to keep our kids engaged, particularly if this extends even further than the May deadline that's established. So, well, we're on a way to make sure that we do that part of it and make sure that kids are. Sure, just two other quick ones. Graduation is always a big deal, and it's a sensitive topic right now for the class of 2020, whose spring full of memory making has really kind of been pulled out from underneath them, unfortunately, and it's really a tough time for them. And so our team has a real desire to make their graduation as special and as memorable as possible. I got to commend Dr. Gadd, CHS principal, as well as Dave Hunter and Mike Luigi, who were on a call today with me. Marlene was on the call. We had met with a number of seniors. And the same thing happened yesterday as well, where we're trying to just solicit student ideas, kick ideas around with them, because we do want to create some memorable experiences, particularly for our graduating seniors as they close out their Cheshire Public Schools experience with us. And So stay tuned. Optimally, we'll have as traditional a ceremony as possible, but absent that opportunity because of health issues, we want to do something special for them. And so we're working on that. So stay tuned. Obviously, it's fluid. We're pretty far away from mid-June, and we're hopeful that things do improve to a point where we could have something resembling a traditional ceremony, and then something else as well for our kids that have already lost so much through the spring. So stay tuned for that. And I want to close with, what I thought was a pretty awesome card that reflected the sentiments of the staff in the district. And I've said to you before that, education for centuries has been a brick and mortar, face-to-face proposition. In the matter of literally 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, after that half-day Friday we had to prepare for a remote learning environment. And I really commend all of our staff who made that possible, as well as our students and parents for their flexibility. But I received a card that kind of, I thought, reflected the sentiments of our staff across the district. So I'll read you a portion of it. And she's talking about the pandemic. And she said, "Oh, okay, it's hard, but I feel supported. I'm learning a lot and being pushed into places I might not have gone. That's good. It will be awesome when we can finally get back in class. I miss the spontaneous energy that can actually only happen in a classroom. But for now, public health and safety is our priority. We got this." And I think that just reflects the attitude that exists amongst the Cheshire Public School staff. And I couldn't find a better way to close out my report than to share that with you. So thank you, Deb Mankey, for passing that card on to me.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you for ending on that. Is there any questions from the board on the superintendent's report? Okay, and again, we had a curriculum committee meeting last night. I thought it was very, very informational and touched upon a lot of topics with online learning. I strongly suggest anyone that's watching that wants a deeper dive on what Marlene talked about with the video and the curriculum evolving, definitely take a watch. There's more detail there and definitely worthwhile. And again, if there's any questions on any of that, please email that email address we have on the agenda, and we'll get back to you on that. Seeing as there's no other questions, the next item up on our agenda is all business, which we have none listed tonight. We have audience. Jeff, have we received any correspondence before I move on to the next section?
I was just looking quickly and we have not.
Huh, okay. So they're really good, I think, I hope. Or people just have another hobby than watching these board meetings.
Yeah, tonight. I don't know, maybe is the voice on or something? I can't imagine what would compete with us.
Well, it's funny. My neighbor who is kind of in an insular area of board meetings, not really, doesn't really go to them, not because they can't, just the time. Since this lockdown, they've been watching pretty much all of our Google Meet meetings. And so last night when we ended, I'm sure we'll get one tonight too. He thanked me for having a great meeting. And I guess what the family does is during board meetings on Google Meet, they actually put a puzzle together while they're watching the meeting. And I say, you know what, if that's what you're doing, if that's your hobby, get a new hobby or maybe get your butt on the board. But I know folks will follow up on this and I'm sure we'll get questions, but Tim, what's up? Did you have a question or? Oh, number of viewers for Mike. Any idea?
20.
About 20? That's good. Again, it's still more in our physical meetings, so we'll take that. Adam, before I go on to the chair update, did you have something you wanted to say or a comment?
Thanks, Tony. It's just a moment of self-promotion. I don't know if you want me to mention it now or afterward, just about what we did. I think it was earlier this week. That's all.
I'll tell you what, let me go. You know what? Go ahead.
Okay. So if I think it was earlier this week, it's all sort of blurs together right now. Tony and I appeared on the Cheshire Cast with Corey Nash and Trisha. I forget her last name. Sorry, Trisha. But we had a great 60-minute conversation for their podcast. And we were invited back, and hopefully, as I think Tony astutely said, that maybe you put someone on besides myself on the podcast too, because all the other board members have other interesting perspectives. But Corey and Trisha had mentioned that they're going to try and get us on a little more often as we go through this unique time. So it was I thought we had a good conversation. It actually talked a lot about the technology that we're using and some of the other issues that have been going on in the school system. So it's a great listen. It goes pretty fast, and enjoy 60 minutes. I don't think you'll regret it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Since we're in the chairman's update, I was going to bring that up. It was a great opportunity. I know they've been trying to get us on there since I think even before the election, but they're so popular, it's amazing. And yeah, time goes by fast. I think yeah, Trisha Kramer, that's correct, and Corey Nash. I know we went longer than an hour. I think it was a lot longer. So I don't know what Corey edited out, but it was very positive. Asked a lot of great questions, and at least from my perspective, I'm sure Adam shares this. It was really questions from the community perspective. No politics, no I don't know rumors. It's just basically, hey, what's going on? Talk about the school modernization committee. The initiatives. It was very refreshing, and board members will tell you we don't really get a chance to have that kind of a public discussion, even in a board meeting. So it was a nice avenue, and hopefully we'll take advantage of that, and we'll invite more board members to it as we can get that going. So thanks for bringing that up, Adam. I really don't have much of an update. Again, it's Jeff covered a lot of things. You get more information in curriculum committee meeting last night. I have been throughout this whole coronavirus situation, been part of CABE's board chair distribution group discussion, and every district is going through very similar situations that they're trying to do online remote learning, slightly different circumstances. So that's slightly different challenges that we have in Cheshire, but by and large, everyone's kind of learning on the fly and starting to share best practices, which is nice to see. And from time to time, as I get some things from the list, I'll send it to the board just for FYI. A lot of districts right now are working through contract negotiations based on the governor's executive 7R order. We're going through our DACO bus, which we'll talk in the executive session at the end of this meeting, but nothing out of the ordinary. One thing that came up is, I guess, some towns and cities looking at next year's budget are already starting to think about or being asked to potentially reduce their budget requests. And one of the questions that came up from some of the board chairs was, does the governor's executive order protect next year's budget? And no, I don't think it was to protect any budget. It was really meant for this year, for this current situation, for bus contracts, things like that. Specific items, not necessarily protected, but should come to a recommendation. So next year's budgets and operating procedures, normal course, where that takes them. But one of the questions that came up is, and I don't know if Jeff and Ben has the answer. CABE hasn't had one yet, but are there penalties or repercussions for not following that executive order? I'm not saying we're going to do this, but if a school district does not negotiate their bus contract, what happens? I just put it out there. No one seems to know.
Yeah, there's not really a clear answer to that. It was more of, it's the directive. I'm assuming that if you fail to follow an executive order, there could be a consequence to that. But what that consequence is isn't clearly delineated.
Yeah, and by no means am I saying we're advocating this, but it's interesting some of the questions that the other districts are going through. So just so I put it out there. If I ever hear an answer officially, I'll let us know. Beyond that, I don't have any other updates. I do, before we adjourn to executive session, I do want to just talk about upcoming meetings. starting with the most immediate one, this Monday evening at 7 p.m., the Board of Ed Finance Committee is going to have a special meeting to talk about the upcoming budget process for 2020-2021. We mentioned earlier that we have our first meeting with the Town Council Budget Committee on April 30th to review the budget we proposed back in early February, I believe. We have been asked by town leadership to look at our budget request and see if there's some items that we could at least postpone to next year. So the Finance Committee wants to just go through that with Jeff and Vincent. It will be on Google. It will be streamed to YouTube Live. So as always, the public will answer questions and commentary. I just ask the public to stay close. I think as the town moves forward and starts to get some clarity coming out of, I guess, the clouds on coronavirus will give us an idea of what we can expect next year town-wide. But beyond that, we have Finance Committee meeting Monday night. April 30th is our Town Council Board of Education budget review. On May 7th, Thursday, May 7th, 7:30, we have a Board of Ed High School showcase. The details for that will be announced. And on Thursday, May 21st at 7:30 p.m., we have a regular Board of Business meeting. More than likely, between the 7th and 21st, probably another meeting if there's any bus contract decision or vote to be made on. I've asked, or I'm going to ask all our committee chairs to see if we need to schedule anything, be it finance, planning, personnel, et cetera, between now and the end of June. Try to get that on the calendar if it's not already on there. So if anything new comes up, we'll make the public aware. But beyond that, I don't have any other updates. Seems that we're at the end of the agenda. We are going to be adjourning into executive session with no action to follow. So that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn to the executive session? Otherwise,
So
I can.
moved. So
Is
moved.
there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Faith. So the motion is seconded. The motion is, we just read it, move to adjourn to executive session to include the superintendent and chief operating officer to discuss the transportation with no action to follow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? None. It passes unanimously. So with that being said, we are adjourned executive session, and we will not be coming back to our meeting as this meeting is adjourned. So thank you for those watching. Thank you for the entire staff that's been not just helping here tonight, but involved in this whole situation. You're doing a magnificent job. Not just coming from the board members, it's coming from the public who have followed us very closely. So thank you again. And that being said, before I close my session, we will get a separate link emailed to us for the executive session. So from Jeff, we'll be on the lookout for that very shortly. That being said, this meeting is adjourned.